Whispers of the river. In the village of Aloran, nestled deep within the arms of the African savanna, the river was not just water, it was a living being. The villagers called it Omi-I, the river of life. It fed their crops, carried their fish, and whispered tales in the wind. But they also believed it had moods, secrets, and a hunger that demanded respect. Every year, when the rains came heavy and the river swelled beyond its banks, the elders of the village would gather and make a sacred offering to appease Omi-I. No one questioned it. No one challenged it. Until Amina. Amina was 16, slender like a reed but strong like the roots of a baobab. Her skin glowed deep brown under the sun, and her eyes held the storm of someone who dreamed bigger than her world allowed. She had lost her mother to the river 5 years ago. The story the elders told was that the river had called her mother during the night and taken her away in exchange for the village's safety. But Amina had never believed that story. She remembered the scream, the splash, the silence. She remembered running outside and seeing only the current, and the reflection of the full moon dancing like mockery on its surface. Amina, child, do not walk near the river at night, her grandmother would warn. It knows your blood. It remembers your mother. But Amina wanted answers. She wanted justice. More than that, she wanted to know the truth. Why did they still offer sacrifices when the river still swallowed homes during the flood? Why did they keep obeying an unseen force? One evening, as the clouds gathered above and the first drops of the season's rain kissed the dry earth, the village gathered in the square. The drums beat low and steady. The fire in the center roared. The high elder, wrapped in a leopard skin robe, stepped forward with a clay bowl filled with herbs, oil, and the name of the chosen one for this year's offering. A hush fell over the crowd. Amina stood beside her grandmother, heart pounding like the drums. This year, the high elder's voice boomed, the river has spoken. It demands the daughter of Zainab, the child of the woman it once welcomed. The crowd gasped. Amina's world tilted. No. Her grandmother screamed. She is a child. My only child's child. But tradition was law. The river had been obeyed for generations. If they refused, they feared the flood would come worse than ever. Amina stood frozen, not with fear, but fury. That night, as thunder grumbled in the distance and the village slept in fear, Amina packed a small satchel. She wore her mother's old headscarf and tied a knife at her waist, not to harm anyone, but to protect herself. She didn't run. She walked directly to the riverbank, barefoot, silent. The water shimmered under the moonlight. Amina stood at the edge. If you are alive, if you are a god, then face me. She shouted. The wind howled. The trees bent. But no one answered. And yet, something stirred beneath the water. Then, a voice, soft and broken like wind through reeds, whispered, "Child of Zainab." Amina's eyes widened. The water rippled. Something was coming. She did not run. She stepped into the river. Beneath the surface, the water was cold, but Amina didn't flinch. It wrapped around her ankles like fingers, inviting and warning at the same time. The river whispered again, "Child of Zainab." The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, like it was inside her bones. She took another step. Behind her, the moon watched in silence, half hidden behind the storm clouds. The stars blinked faintly, as if unsure they should witness what was about to unfold. Amina's heart pounded, but she kept going. The water was at her knees now. "I came for answers," she said aloud. "Not to be a sacrifice." The river rippled, and suddenly, silence fell. Even the frogs stopped croaking. The air grew thick. The current slowed, then, without warning, split down the middle. Before her, The water parted, revealing a narrow stone path that descended beneath the river like a forgotten stairway. She hesitated only for a breath. Then she stepped forward. Each step down was like walking into another world. The air grew warmer. The scent of wet earth and old magic filled her lungs. The whispers became clearer, voices, hundreds of them, murmuring names, songs, and secrets. And then, silence again. Amina emerged into a vast cavern beneath the river. A glowing pool of still water sat at its center. Surrounding it were figures, tall, cloaked, their faces hidden. They stood in a circle like watchers, unmoving. Amina stared at them. One of them stepped forward. The hood fell back. It was her mother. "Ma," she whispered. Zainab smiled gently, but there was pain in her eyes. "You should not have come, my child. I had to. They want to give me to the river, like they gave you." Zainab nodded slowly. "They don't understand. They never did. The river does not want sacrifices. It never did." Amina frowned. "Then why did it take you?" Zainab looked at the glowing pool. "Because I heard its cry. The river is alive, but not as they think. It's in pain. Long ago, it was poisoned by greed, by dark magic from outsiders who wanted its power. It calls to those with clean hearts, people who can help heal it. It called me. And now, it calls you." Amina shook her head slowly. "You mean, all this time, they believed in a lie?" "No," Zainab said softly. "They believed in fear. And fear makes people blind." Amina stepped closer to the pool. "What do I do?" "You have a choice. Step into the pool and become one with the river. Learn its secrets. Heal it. Or go back, and live with the knowledge that you could have changed everything but didn't." Her hands trembled. But her heart did not. She stepped into the pool. The moment her feet touched the water, her mind exploded with visions. She saw the first village, long before time was written down, people dancing by the river, offering it music and love, not blood. She saw strangers in armor arrive, carving through the trees, cursing the river, burying metal in its soil. She saw her mother, kneeling at this very pool, giving her life not as a sacrifice, but as a guardian. Now, the river welcomed her. Amina's body glowed with blue light. Her veins sang with knowledge. The pain of the river became hers, and she cried. Not in fear, but in rage and purpose. Then, it stopped. She opened her eyes. Zainab was gone. So were the cloaked figures. She was alone. But she understood now. The river had given her its truth. It was time to return, and tell the world. The voice of truth. Amina rose from the glowing pool, the light still humming beneath her skin like the rhythm of an old drum. The river no longer felt like an enemy. It pulsed through her, part of her, warm, alive, aware. She had been chosen not to die, but to carry a message. As she walked back up the hidden stone path, the river folded itself over her footsteps like it had never parted. By the time she reached the bank, the sky had changed. Storm clouds were heavy, low, and boiling. The village of Aloran was wide awake. Drums beat in alarm. People shouted. Torches flickered in the night. Amina has gone to the river. She's broken the rule. She will bring the flood upon us all. The High Elder stood in the center of the square, his hands raised to silence the crowd. We must act before it is too late. The river will be angry. The storm is its warning. Suddenly, a voice rang out, clear, strong, and full of power. No, Amina said, stepping into the firelight. Her skin shimmered with drops of water. Her eyes glowed faintly with the memory of the pool. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her grandmother wept with relief, while others backed away in fear. The High Elder narrowed his eyes. "You have defied the river. You have cursed us all." Amina stepped forward. "I did not defy the river. I spoke with it. I heard its truth. And that truth is not what you think." She turned slowly, letting her voice carry. "The river does not want blood. It never did. It wants healing. Long ago, it was poisoned by those who sought to control it. The floods are not its wrath, they are its pain. For generations, we've been feeding it fear instead of hope. That ends now." Murmurs stirred the crowd. Some nodded. Some still looked afraid. "You speak like a god," the High Elder said. "But how do we know you are not cursed?" Amina raised her hand, and the rain began to fall, but gently. Not in rage, but in rhythm. Like a lullaby. The villagers stared. Then something extraordinary happened. The river, which had been roaring and swelling all night, began to retreat, calmly, slowly, peacefully. The mud turned solid. The trees stopped shaking. A cool wind passed over the village like a sigh of relief. And the people understood. Amina walked to the center and placed her hand on the elder's chest. "It's time to stop fearing the old ways and start listening to the truth." The elder looked down, ashamed. "You were right," he said, his voice trembling. "We have been worshipping our fear. But you have become the river's voice." That night, the sacred offering was not of blood, but of unity. Villagers gathered by the riverbank with food, songs, and stories. Children laughed. Elders prayed. Amina stood barefoot at the edge, her arms open, her heart strong. She wasn't a sacrifice. She was a guardian, just like her mother. And the river, for the first time in decades, was silent, not in anger, but in peace. The guardian's legacy. Months passed, and the village of Aloran transformed. The old rituals faded like dust in the wind, replaced by new traditions, planting trees along the banks, teaching children to clean the river, and building small bridges that connected the people to the water instead of separating them from it. And at the center of this rebirth stood Amina. She was no longer just a girl. She had become a symbol, a legend, a guardian. People from neighboring villages came to hear her speak, to learn what the river had taught her. Some still struggled to let go of the old ways, but every floodless season that passed was proof the curse was never real. Only the pain was. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the acacia trees and the air turned golden, Amina sat with her grandmother outside their hut. "You remind me of your mother more and more every day," the old woman said, her eyes soft. Amina smiled. "She didn't leave me. She became part of something greater." Her grandmother nodded slowly. "And so have you." That night, Amina returned to the river, alone. Not out of fear, but out of love. She sat at the edge and dipped her fingers into the current. "I'm still here," she whispered. The river rippled in reply. She closed her eyes and saw flashes of the glowing pool, the hidden cavern, the faces of the cloaked guardians, and her mother's smile. "Others will come," she whispered. "More girls like me. More hearts ready to hear." And the river, like a friend, sang quietly to her in return. Years later, long after the elders who once feared the water had passed on, a new village elder, a young girl named Lammy, sat at the foot of a carved stone beside the river. The carving showed a woman with eyes like storm clouds, standing with open arms and bare feet in the water. Beneath it, words were etched. Amina, the river's voice. She did not fear the river. She listened. And it listened back. Lammy closed her eyes and heard it too, the whisper of Omi, not as a curse, not as a monster, but as a companion. And so the story lived on. Not in fear, but in legacy. The end.